Now, I previously told you guys that Brian Kohberger probably will not survive in prison for many reasons. And the reasons that I gave you was A, because it becomes a trophy for the other people doing life to kill Brian Kohberger. It's honestly the truth. And I think you'll see a lot of that. In fact, I'm going to show you an article that is actually confirming what I previously told you. Then I want to talk to you guys a little bit about all the fucking goofies out there that still refuse to admit any flaws or being wrong, or they still believe Kohberger is innocent. There's a shitload of them. I'm JB Gunner. This is Crime Time. Let's get on into it. Let's do it.
Bring it back.
Man, what a 4th of July vacation. Boy, I ain't took a whole week off in forever. I got a chance to take a whole week off. I didn't do any channels, nothing the entire week. It's actually been exactly a week today. We are back, though, and we're going to talk about Brian Kohberger. We're going to talk about, look, I have no problem with these other YouTubers. None. Especially someone like Harsh Reality, who I consider a colleague. I consider him cool as fuck. I think he's wrong. I think he's wrong, as you've seen in our debates on the situation and things of that nature. I don't have a problem with Jay Ombre or whatever he's called, Ravioli. I have no problem with Crime Circus, the clown. And I call him the clown because he's dressed like a clown. You know what I mean? I assume it's a clown. Not because I think he's a clown, even though he's kind of a clown. But anyways, I have no real problem with any of these people. But as people that discuss this and debate this, criticism not on the individual person, but on the ideology that they're presenting, I think sometimes is necessary. And today, I'm going to present a little bit of pushback. But anyways, we're going to start off with this Kohberger thing. To you people out there that still think he's innocent, I just want to say this. You are more than welcome to have that opinion. You're more than welcome to be wrong. But I'm going to show you, I just want to show you one thing, okay? I want to show you one thing. This right here is written factual basis. Look the signature at the bottom of this. People, by the way, he writes like a 3-year-old with a crayon. But Brian Kohberger, whether you like it or not, whether you want to admit it or not, has admitted to the crimes. You did the exact same thing with Delphi. I don't understand why it's so hard, why there's so much mental illness, that people can't just say, you know what, maybe I got this case wrong. I had to say it with Brian Laundrie. I had to say it with Brian Kohberger. I just said it before the results came out. Luckily for me, I said it 6 months ago, so it wasn't really a problem. But it takes a little bit of integrity to say, you know what, maybe I shot my shot wrong. Maybe I got this wrong. To people like Harsh Reality who say innocent until proven guilty, I agree with that tremendously. I agree with that completely. But now he has been proven guilty. He has admitted and confessed to the crime. If we can't take a man's word when they say that they committed murder, I don't know when else we can take this man's word. You can, listen, I want you to look at this guy in his eyes, in this photo. You're telling me you don't believe this guy killed people? You really don't see it now? Anyways, I've been looking at it. We'll get to the whole him getting murdered in jail and prison and all that in a second. But I just want to rant and ramble a little bit. I want to look at some of the things that people are saying. There are people that are saying Brian Kohberger was set up. Set up by who? Set up by who and for what reason? And then why would he confess to the crime? So they ordered the knife to Brian Kohberger's house. They then took that knife and left it under the body of the knife sheath under the body of a dead chick. They had his cell phone and did all those movements. Who set Brian Kohberger up? Are you saying the feds set him up? For what reason? What purpose? You're saying that the Idaho police State police set him up. Now that you can have a little bit more leeway with because there's reason for Moscow to want to solve the case quick. I'll give you that. But there is not a single reason for the FBI to give two fucks about Brian Kohberger or these girls. What I mean by that isn't that they're not important, it's that they're not important enough for a conspiracy to exist with. The thing about conspiracies, you have to ask yourself, on any conspiracy, whether we're talking about false flags, moon landings, anything, you have to ask yourself, what is the reason? What is the purpose of the conspiracy? What is the benefit for the people conspiring? So when you sit and say Brian Kohberger was set up, but yet you throw all kinds of names out there, Brent Kohberger was working with the feds and all this. You got to ask yourself, what logical sense does this make? And most importantly, what actual evidence do you have? When you come out here and say the plea was forced, they forced him to plead guilty, what evidence do you have? Yes, he pled guilty as a transaction. That's what happens in plea bargains. You plead guilty because you don't want to face the full repercussions of the crimes you committed. That is the offer. That is the transaction. That is the trade-off. Brian Kohberger did not want to face the death penalty. So he decided, you know what, life in prison can't be that bad. But I assure you, he didn't plead guilty because he was forced to, or as some of you people say, to save his family from talking or testifying. Testifying to what? You're telling me to save your life, Brian Kohberger? That your family wouldn't have willingly said, yeah, I talked to him for an hour that morning, or yes, I talked to him. Listen, my family and most people's family would even lie for us. I guarantee you, if I was facing life in prison or the death penalty, every single person that loves me would have no problem going to court and just flat out lying for me. So this theory that Brian Kohberger was trying to save his family from just having a conversation and testifying about, well, what? The phone call? The hour phone call that morning after the murders at 6 a.m.? Yeah, you probably don't want him to testify to that shit. Because you were probably with some awkwardness to it. You didn't want your dad to have to testify about your ride home. Now, I don't believe Brian Kohberger confessed to any of them people. I don't believe Brian Kohberger even hinted to any of them people that he killed these people. So I don't believe the whole doing it to save his family thing, because I don't believe he told his family anything. Nobody goes and kills people and goes home like, Mom, guess what I did today? Nobody does it. It doesn't happen. You're just making this shit up. Then, the fact that nobody, and I want you to understand, out of all the Kohbergers, I'm literally the only YouTuber that has said, literally, I was wrong by saying my previous position that Brian Kohberger was innocent was wrong. Do you know why it was wrong? Because he was proven guilty to me, and then ultimately in the court of law when he admitted to it himself. Ask yourself why everybody in this whole community is like a QAnon fucktard. That's also why the content creators aren't changing their position, though. When you know that your audience is QAnon fucktards, and by the way, I'm a Trump guy, so I'm saying this as a Trump guy because the QAnon people were that community's version of the retards. Kind of like how the progressives are the retarded version of the Democrats. But yeah, if you believed that JFK Jr. was going to be Donald Trump's vice president in 2020 after Donald Trump came back and won the real election in March, you're probably retarded. If you think Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton are wearing a mask over their lizard faces or their clones, you're probably a fucktard. Those same types of fucktards are the exact same people in this audience. So just as a business mechanism, you don't want to lose those fucktards because they're the ones that pay the bills. And I'm not pointing this at any one particular person in particular. I can tell you, I can tell you from experience, whenever you change your position, your audience changes. And it's hard. It's a loss of revenue. When I began to say Brian Kohberger is guilty, my views went down tremendously. My donations from this channel went down tremendously. Do you know why? Because I lost the fucktards. Where in the beginning, I had both the reasonable people and the fucktards. But when you take a position that the fucktards don't like, they tend to go stomp their feet and run away. Whereas reasonable people, even that were guilters, they appreciated my content because I wasn't coming up with weird conspiracy theories. So when your entire audience is the fucktards and people that are not reasonable, and what's funny is that the audience will tell you if you're not a fucktard, you need to educate yourself. Bitch, I don't need to educate myself about a fucking green car that didn't exist. That didn't exist in this case. I don't need to educate myself on whatever fucking conspiracy you're rolling with. Now, if you got true evidence, I'm always open to it. Always. I believe in the scientific method. I believe in Occam's razor. I believe in all of this shit. I believe in order to get to answers, there are step-by-step process to get to the answers. Sometimes that takes a year. Sometimes that takes 2 years. But then there's the fucktards that never get to the answers because they don't believe in the scientific method. They don't believe in taking the steps to get to a final, a real position. A lot of the people have the exact same idea, the exact same opinion on this case that they had 3 years ago. And if you have the exact same opinion on this case that you had 3 years ago, you're probably retarded. Because this case, over the last 3 years, has taken many different twists and turns and bumps. So if you're in the exact same spot, that means you ain't moved nowhere. You're just literally retarded and just sitting there drooling all over yourself. I don't blame the content creators for wanting to keep the support of the fucktards, the QAnon types. I don't blame them. This is a business. And I know you people out there believe that this isn't, that us content creators do this for some sort of good purpose. No. Content creators are here to entertain you, educate you, whatever that situation may be. But there's not a single content creator that's successful in this at all, that's just doing this for the love of the game. Every single person that you watch, and if they're successful, is monetized. Every single person that you watch probably does this in some aspect full time, sometimes not. But what they're doing is they're looking at this from a business perspective. Well, if I say this, will I lose this audience? I go through it with my political channel all the time. As a Trump supporter, there's times I criticize Trump, like with Jeffrey Epstein right now. And you got to always worry about the QAnon tars saying, how dare you criticize Trump? They're going to leave. Same thing here. How dare you criticize Brian Kohberger? They're going to leave. And some content creators, probably more intelligent than I, said, no, I don't want them to leave. I want them to keep hitting them super chats, the choo-choo train. You know what I'm talking about. Anyways, I understand that audience changes is hard and that it's a loss of revenue. But you got to ask yourself, how come not a single content creator has changed their position from guilty to from not guilty to guilty, even after Brian Kohberger signed his name? Why isn't there a single Kohberger that has changed their position but me? I believe it's a clear delusion mentality. And I believe, once again, that the content creators themselves play off of the delusional mentality of the QAnon fucktards in their audience. Because they know them QAnon tards, them snack caking motherfuckers, are still going to show up tomorrow to hear the new theory. I find it to be completely immoral. I find this entire situation to be literally just intelligent people taking advantage of retards. I believe that's what this whole thing is. Because any human being that isn't seeing all this, that is seeing all this, any logical, normal human being, inside their brain, the minute Kohberger or Richard Allen said, yes, we did it, any logical human being would say, you know what, they did it. Especially when there's evidence showing that they did it. The delusional person will be like, there is no evidence, JB, there is nothing. Yes, there is. There's goddamn DNA, dummy. The goddamn knife was sent to his house, dummy. There is evidence. So my position on this is that since I believe that all of these content creators are probably logical, intelligent people, they're also intelligent enough to not make that shift because they know it's lost revenue. So they have decided to immorally still target the dummies as their target audience. Now look, this is entertainment. Like I said, I do not blame the content creators. I blame the dummies. I blame the snack cakers. Because if you weren't so fucking retarded and you weren't willing to change your position when clearly you're wrong, this type of manipulation and taking advantage of the tards wouldn't exist. But do I feel bad for it? No, because I don't care when tards are taken advantage of. Anyways, speaking of tards, by the way, I do want to show you guys something. Just so you know, just so you understand, listen, only a small percentage plead guilty to crimes they didn't do, 2 to 8%. I want you to ask yourself, how many of that 2 to 8% are facing 4 consecutive lives in prison? Before you sit and say to me, people confess to crimes they didn't commit all the time, you're lying. 2 to 8% is a rarity. That's not all the time. And how much of those plea bargains do you think are actually murders? How many of them plea bargains do you think is actual life? Now let's get to this real quick. Let's get to Brian Kohberger. It says from the Daily Mail, Brian Kohberger facing bloody and horrific karma as he enters prison population, expert warns. That's exactly right. And once again, I said this, and everybody's like, no, he's going to be in solitary. He's not going to be in solitary. He's not going to be in the hole for 40 years, 50 years. He's not going to be in protective custody for 50 years. He's not that important. Brian Kohberger could face a vicious initiation into prison after his shocking admission to killing the kids. As part of the deal, he escaped the death penalty, but will spend the rest of his life in prison. Experts warn, however, that the former criminology student might have signed up for an unofficial death sentence. He did. He would have been much safer on death row. He's going to have a target on his back as soon as he walks in the door in general population. Former prison pastor Keith Rovere told Fox News. That's exactly what I told you guys before. Is that the minute he walks in, hold on, let me finish reading this for you so you can see what he says. Those who are doing life have nothing to lose. The badge of honor they would receive will get them and respect in the prison and probably get them countless letters from the outside world. That's exactly what I told you guys just last week. That immediately there will be people writing whoever kills Kohberger. There'll probably be women that like prison inmates that will want to send commissary to the person that kills Brian Kohberger. It's a notch on your belt if you're the guy that kills Brian Kohberger. In prison, that's the way it works. And then especially in a level 4 prison or where you're in there with nothing but actual killers doing life for the most part. There's nothing to lose. It's not like them getting another life is going to hurt. And you may say, well, Brian Kohberger killed people too. Yes, but you can tell whether someone's built like what's coming in prison. It's easy to sneak in the house and kill drunk women. Killing grown men inside the penitentiary, who are also savages, is nowhere near as easy as committing the Idaho 4 murders. Seth Ferranti, funny how notoriety will get you killed and how notoriety will get you respect in the same prison. That's right. Seth Ferranti, a former prisoner turned filmmaker, agreed, telling the outlet the convicts are going to eat him up in the Idaho State Prison, and they are exactly right. Although Kohberger may receive additional security due to how high profile the case is, he won't be living in isolation like the death row prisoners who spend 23 hours a day in their cell. He'll also have to work, leaving him constantly in contact with the other inmates and exposed. Whereas death row prisoners are served meals to their cells and have very little contact. This is going to be interesting. This is going to be very, very easy. I mean, this is going to be very, very interesting. He'll probably get protective custody at first, but killers don't respect people who kill kids or students. That's not necessarily true. He will get attacked even in protective custody. Yeah, he will. It's not true what they say about the whole students and kids thing. It's not true. If you diddle kids or kill like adolescents, that's true. But you're talking about grown-ass people. These people were women and men. Yes, they were young compared to you and me, maybe. But that's not really good. The thing that's going to get Brian Kohberger off in prison is just his fame. It's just his fame and the fame that will come to the guy that kills him. It happened with Dahmer. It happens. The minute you walk in as a famous killer, there's always going to be somebody that wants to test you. When Mike Tyson came to IYC in Plainfield, Indiana, people wanted to test Mike Tyson. It's the truth. That's Mike fucking Tyson. It happens everywhere. It happened. If the bigger name you got going into prison, the more target that's on your back. Period. Told you. And that's probably what's going to happen to Brian Kohberger. And you guys will still be sitting here saying, he's innocent. He didn't do it, GB. Stop snack caking. Learn to look at things from a more logical perspective. And as I've said before, if you believe in your head that both Richard Allen and Brian Kohberger both made false confessions that cost them their lives, you got to ask yourself, what are the odds of that? And if you are one of the people that just constantly disbelieve, like you always are taking the criminal side, maybe you're the sack of shit. If your first and lasting position is I'm going to side with the suspected criminal, then you're probably also at least somewhat a criminal, or you have a fetish for criminals. Because no one with any morality will still sit inside with all the people charged and suspected of crimes. At some point, somebody's got to be guilty. Well, right or wrong. Right or wrong. All right, guys, I'm going to get up out of here. I will see you in the next one. If you like what I do here and you find my content valuable, feel free to hit the link. Support the channel. I'll see you guys tomorrow with a new case or new video. Back from vacation. Anyways, look, don't be offended. Take the criticism as constructive. Because you gotta ask yourself, man, How logical is your frame of argument? How logical is your position? If everybody's innocent, then who the fuck is guilty? Then, oh, that's right, you guys agree, you guys think Diddy. Ain't it funny how Diddy's the one that got off? It's because he wasn't guilty of what you claimed he was guilty of. And that was obvious based on the text messages and things we were shown with Diddy. However, it's really strange how sometimes it's popular to say someone's guilty, mainly if they're famous, because you guys did the same thing with Ron. You guys do that Me Too movement shit. It's really funny how, like, if you're famous going into the case, everybody wants to immediately say you're guilty. But Richard Allen and Brian Kohberger, they're definitely innocent, even after they confessed. Ask yourself, man, how fucking logical was that position? And both of them falsely confessed? It just happens to be the two cases that's been the biggest in the last several years? Just both of them confessed? It's because they did it, man. Richard Allen may have had help with them two girls, maybe. But I'm telling you, people don't openly admit to murdering young kids and girls unless they did it. It's not something that typically a man would admit to, even if he did do it. Just being honest. Love y'all. I'm out.